which saw the phenomenal AJ Styles from SmackDown face off against Seth Freakin Rollins from Raw to determine who would be the first ever holder of that championship.
And I don't know if you took any notice, but I did. And they went to great lengths to continuously, throughout the commentary and at the start, to continuously call it the World Heavyweight Champion. Not once did they say WWE World Heavyweight Champion like they would normally. And I actually paid particular attention because, well, actually, they're all saying, because you sort of know what they're going to say, and they don't, and it makes you, oh, hang on. And then I actually wrote it in red. Commentary referred to it many, many times as the World Heavyweight title, not championship. And not once did they refer to it as the WWE World Heavyweight Championship or title.
What is their angle on this?
I think, and look, it's only my, because one of the things they said very early on when they did a real close-up of it, again, I don't know how many people took notice, but they said that this particular bout was designed with the McMahon family crest, a lion, and also a homage to Bruno Sammartino and the 60-year history of the title. And that they didn't say this on the show, but I did read it somewhere else, that in the record books, they're going to show that the last World Heavyweight Champion was Randy Orton, and there's been a gap, and now it'll be, Seth Rollins. So I think, and it is very much a Raw belt because they made mention of that a couple of times, Corey Graves in particular. And I think it's to delineate between, I think it's actually trying to slightly lessen Roman Reigns' one because, he's the, undisputed WWE Universal Champion.
All right, let's look at our history books here. Right? Go back in history. 1963, Vince McMahon Sr. broke away from the NWA.
Yes.
Feeling that he wasn't getting an opportunity for their World Heavyweight Champion. So then they say 60 years of lineage from that. So now the way I look at it is this is the World Heavyweight title. They're basically trying to say they're replacing the NWA lineage.
Well, I think by saying the world, but look, people are not stupid. I mean, people know every company has got their own world champion. I think this is a little bit more them getting back to their roots because you got the McMahon family crest and, homage to Bruno. He was the only one mentioned, homage to Bruno and our 60-year history.
Was Bruno, I think somebody have to, was Bruno the first champion after 60?
Buddy Rogers was.
Buddy Rogers. All right, so why are you referring to Bruno? I know they've got Buddy Rogers, but...
Because everybody, knows of Bruno and what Bruno did and what he meant, and they sort of built that company on his back a wee bit, whereas Buddy Rogers had come over from the NWA, I think.
He was there.
So that, it's just, I suppose they've got to start with someone, and they thought, well, Bruno's probably the bigger and more popular name or whatever. But I think there's a... And I might be reading it wrong. I think it's almost like an indirect swipe at Reigns. Okay, you've got and they do talk about it, and we'll talk about it later in his match, about the 1,000 days and, another 27 days he'll equal Pedro Morales 40 years ago. But I think it's, there was a stat, I don't know if you saw it, Anthony, but in the 1,000 days, he's only defended it, I think, was it 28 times or something like that? There was a stat like that, and I remember looking and thinking, Jesus, is that all?
I think it might have been something like that. I do remember I did.
Yeah, it was something like about 28 times in 1,000. And I think, it's almost like, well, we're running without anybody defending our world title.
Well, that's simple, just strip him. Right?
Yeah, I think...
this can be worked in that you're dropping the belt. And if you look at Hogan's run, Hogan was only defending towards the end on one of the three main pay-per-views.
Yeah, probably.
Right, so in his, I think, 6-year tenure, Was it 6 years?
He was about 2000 odd. No, Backlund and Bruno had it the most. And then I saw a stat. Hogan was 1,400 and something, 1,427 or something like that.
But he didn't defend on TV. He didn't defend. He defended on pay-per-view.
Yeah,
right?
But don't forget in that time, TV was a wee bit different. It, hadn't sort of got to where it is the last...
Every 3 months.
No, I understand.
They go on about his lineage and I'm not a Reigns fan, don't get me wrong. But when they talk about Reigns' lineage, and only 128 days and 1,000 days he defended it, right? That's the booking situation.
Well, look, that's only my take on it. It doesn't mean I'm right.
I don't know. I don't know why. I think that I reckon they're trying to create a world title, not a WWE title, like an NWA. They're trying to say that this is the world wrestling title. Right?
Yeah, because they specifically do not say WWE, which they do on all their titles.
That's right. So I think they're trying to create the world title. So as in WWE's done throughout the last 25 years, is try to change history.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I think they're trying to do. They're in the middle of a step of changing history by saying will be just one world, and that is the World Championship. We know WWE, NWA, anything else. It is the Wrestling World Championship.
Yeah, possibly. And that could be a direct slap in the face at AEW with, their prominence.
NWA that's currently running. It's a slap at all of them because they've changed history. If you look at their videos they put out, that there's stuff that they put in there as far as historical facts that aren't historical facts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because they're trying to make out that Vince McMahon Sr. and Vince Jr. has created wrestling.
Oh, absolutely. And look, to some degree, in fairness, as you would, if it's your company, you're pushing your company, your stocks, your shareholders, your audience. I sort of get the marketing of it all and whatever. And there are a lot of wrestling fans that don't know the history of wrestling. They're just people who grew up with WWE when it was Hogan onwards, and
they don't understand that there was guys like Nick Goulas before that ran friggin' well.
Memphis.
The Memphis, Jerry Jarrett,
Yeah.
Graham, which was out of Florida, right? Which was a great, all these great promoters that were out there. Yeah.
Even Vern with AWA.
AWA, even though I mentioned Vern, you've got Bill Watts, right? Yeah. These are guys that were running the business and pioneering the business, and they were better than Vince Sr.
Oh,
Junior took them all out.
Yeah.
So I think I do get frustrated with WWE when they start changing history. They should be respecting all the history that come before them. It's like me saying, I started wrestling here in Victoria when we know exactly that George Julio trained me. Completely bullshit. So for me, it's frustrating when they do that, WWE. Because you're pulling the wool and not being honest to the history of the sport.
No, but they haven't been honest with the history of the sport for many, 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 many years. When they said, like when Hogan fought Andre in WrestleMania, was it 3?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
First time they'd met dozens of times.
Oh, yeah.
And at Shea Stadium, and no one's ever body slammed Andre. There's at least 24 people you could right off the top of your head and body slam them.
That's right.
So anyway. But interestingly, I don't know why, because I thought, maybe something comes out of the winner, because there was talk that Bray Wyatt was going to appear and confront the winner of the world title. And I thought, well, this being on first, does something happen there, or does something happen later on? But nothing really happened. They just opened the show with it, which I thought was quite remarkable.
They've been doing that though. They've been putting the semi-main as the main as the openers. They've been,
which is sorry, Mick, but it's probably not bad. Because the first 2 matches were quite reasonable, and then boy, did it go downhill for a couple of matches.
Well, it This is true.
And I've got some scathing comments for later.
But I like to hear, Pete. Bit of honesty.
No, I'll call it as I see it, as always. I've just done that on Facebook with the football, and I've been slammed unmercifully, but I called it as I saw it.
Right, actually, your guy pulled the pin, the coach, yeah?
Yes.
Hardwick, is he coaching to the end of the year? Or is
No, he finished. The assistant started today.
Oh, well.
He could possibly be our next coach, but they're going to have to improve a bit on what they showed today. But anyway, so we did have at the Jeddah Superdome, the first of a triple main event. Interesting, just one other thing before we get into the specific matches. They call it the Night of Champions. The two women's championship matches, which we'll talk about a bit later, were just abysmal. No US title defended. It was defended the night before on SmackDown, which had been pre-recorded anyway, a week ago. Interesting you'd have the Night of Champions. Mind you, and that was the only title not defended.
Yeah, that's right. And that was, I think, where it was founded.
And surely to goodness, Austin Theory versus, a blow-up doll must have been more entertaining than a 28-second match with Natalya and Rhea Ripley.
Yeah.
We'll talk about shortly. And on Natalia's 40th birthday.
Because we've got a bit to talk about that one too.
Yeah, so let's get into the first one. How did you see the first one, boys?
What do you reckon, Anthony?
Well, once I saw it was kicking it off, I'm like, well, that goes to show what they think of this title. Because I would have had that main event.
I don't know.
I don't know about main event, given... sorry.
In the sense of that you're crowning a new champion.
Yeah, the prestige and all that. I get what you're saying.
Yes.
It's. I think when you come to booking, and it's who's going to keep the bumps on the seats at the end of the night. And those four guys, 3 out of the 4 in the main, going to keep bums on seats. But that would have been a very good semi-main, and I can understand this semi-main to an opener, right? And
but then what would you have opened with? Because
listen, the
middle of the show was pretty
average.
Match
2 was a great opener.
Who?
Match 2 wasn't a bad match.
Yeah, no, that was the only women's match that was actually quite good, and we'll talk about.
I quite enjoyed match 2, which we'll talk about in a little while. But that would have been my opener if I had to open with something, but given the where they were, you probably wouldn't open with a women's match. Either one, maybe Gunther versus Ali could have opened up with that one. That wasn't a bad match.
Yeah, but he got flattened, so the local not the local boy, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But anyway,
happy
but you're right, Anthony. I thought the same thing. The minute they opened with it, I thought, oh. But then again, with most things, you remember the start and the finish and not the middle.
That's right.
Which in my love life, the start and the finish is about 7.5 seconds. So really, there's no real middle to talk about. But I thought it was a really, really good. Look, you got 2 great workers.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Yeah.
Seth's at the top of his game. I got to be honest, I wasn't sure which way they might go with it. I thought, did they give AJ one last big run or something? But on reflection, Seth really needed to win it because he's going to become almost the face of the company for them for a while.
I can't see. I can't figure out why they think like that with Seth Rollins. I don't see it. I need to see him being. I would not pay money to see him in the event.
Look,
he's a talented guy. Don't get me wrong. Talented, right? His charisma is fake and phony.
Yeah.
Right? Not believable in any way, shape, or form. And I don't really believe him to be a true main eventer. I know Triple H is high on him.
He's very big on him.
Yeah, right. But myself, no. And even AJ. I'm not a big fan of AJ Styles, but he's not either one of those guys really are what I consider to be guys that be holding that belt. That's my opinion of it. That for me is Cody Rhodes. I don't know what's going on. Cody Rhodes will put bums on seats for you. People will go and watch him.
Well, that's going to be a slow build, obviously.
It's too slow. You'll murder him by the time it happens. This is
It's a
almost
bit like, I think, it might end up being like the Bray Wyatt thing. Yeah, they brought him back and it was that slow to burn, it just died. And
yeah. I think they're on that. I think they're on that point now with him because
it's getting there, yeah.
it's there's a lot of how can I say always WWE is a lot of prejudice on booking. They're booking prejudiced heaps, right? Instead of looking at who's going to bring you real money, you've given it a go to AJ, you've given a go to Seth Rollins. They're not really brought you any money. You know, I think Rhodes will bring you some money, but they're willing to give that up, almost like they have a tendency WWE of like putting his old man in polka dots. You know,
Yeah.
or bring people that come in and you know what they did to DDP and that kind of thing. Instead of looking at this guy can make money, well, they're not really part of us, so let's move them forward. But that's a story for another day.
Yeah.
But one of these two guys I see holding the world title as meaning anything because you got Roman Reigns, which is so strong. You need someone that can compete with Roman Reigns on a
But I genuinely believe Rollins can. Like, you know, he's got that theme song and the whole crowd do it and the whole well, it's heat. You know. You don't have to be good. I mean, look at Hogan. You don't have to be good to be on top.
I'm even thinking about how many people are actually singing to him when he walks in if it's not dubbed over the top.
Oh, well.
Look at that crowd sometimes and they're sitting there with they're sitting on their hands. You know, you'll get an odd bit and piece here that go on with the music, to continue on with the music. A lot of that is forced on. It's a bit of a Goldberg.
Yes.
It's a bit of a Goldberg thing, you know. So, you know, I'm to the point that I think that they're forcing Rollins down everyone's throat, right? The guy is a great worker, but the character's ridiculous at times. And you need someone, if you're going to really run up against Reigns, who considers one of those two guys is at Reigns' level? They're not. So if you're trying to create a world champion, you got to have somebody that's at Reigns' level or better. So a Lesnar, you know, or Cody Rhodes, or a Randy Orton. You know, the guys that you can say, all right, these two guys are not, they're mid-card champions at best. It's been a bit cruel now, but it's the truth.
Look, you're entitled to your opinion, and yeah. I don't know that a lot of people would necessarily disagree, but it does open up a lot of different programs now. I mean, Cody has beaten Seth Rollins 3 times. So does he become the obvious one, or what do they do with him and his, you know, titanium cast broken arm?
Yeah, I've got him on 2 losses with Lesnar and a broken arm.
Yeah.
You done with Cody Rhodes. You've lost, you know, you are very quickly losing the stock you had in him.
Yeah. They've obviously got some story, some program, but how quickly it plays out and how smartly it plays out.
And with that belt, if like we spoke before, that's going to be the belt that's going to trump Reigns, right?
Well, the Raw
version. You need a person that's going to trump Reigns. No matter what, how shiny the belt you put on, you call it a world title, you don't address it to WWE, whatever you do, unless the person who's holding that belt is trumping the current champion on the other side, it ain't worth shit.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see what they do. So, but the match itself, I thought, was excellent.
I didn't like it in all the places. I thought,
No.
2 great guys.
Yeah.
But it was all over the joint. It was like they didn't build the big spots. They throw a big spot in there, then they'd run a whole heap of small spots. Then run it like the reverse superplex into reverse Falcon Arrow, right? That happened within the first 10 minutes of the match or something. That's a finish. And he kicks out. You know.
Well, they all got their moves in. They all got the counter moves in.
They didn't build to that big final spot. It just happened all over the joint. You know, there's no build of the match. You know, especially for a world title match, they didn't build to those big spots towards the end. They were throwing big spots in with small spots. It was all over the joint. There was no build to the match, no psychology on how they build to the match. For a match of that magnitude, right? It was still a solid 6 or 6.5, right? Don't get me wrong. I'm not bagging it. I'm being pretty critical now, right? I'm being critical in the way that the way they put it together, right? They didn't build to big spots. And the other thing they didn't do is there was not a lot of resistance or fighting on not getting put into that spot. They just took the suplex, or they just took the slam, they just took the spot, right? Without fighting for their life and making the spot look like it was more deadly than what it is. So by grabbing on the ropes and trying not to take it, they just took the spots. That is indie style wrestling. For that level, I don't want to see indie work. I want to see work from professionals that are going to tell me a story that the move means something and I'm scared of the move. So when I was watching the match, I'm sort of thinking to myself, all right, this is just a whole heap of indie spots being run one after the other. And that is a Rollins thing. He's an indie heart worker at heart, right? If you watch him even with that Edge match, watched that Edge match that they done in Saudi when they had that cage and they threw everything at it.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, no wonder it was so bad, because it's not only Edge that's shit, it's also Rollins that thinks like that too. We'll throw a whole heap of indie spots in and make no sense. Just throw a whole heap of moves, get all my stuff in, and that's it, instead of telling a story of why they're doing it. That's the way I looked at it. It was great. Look, don't get me wrong. Two great workers, two punches look phenomenal. Everything they do look phenomenal. Everything. But the story they're telling in the match, they lose that psychology.
You got to remember, though, that the average fan doesn't look at it like we do.
I agree, but that's the way
they look at it as a spectacle, and I tried to do that because I've been finding lately I've been incredibly critical on a lot of the matches. And I thought just be a wee bit more objective and look at it not from an inside knowledge point of view, but just a fan's point of view. I actually quite enjoyed the match. I thought it was not bad. I actually gave it an 8.
I couldn't go that high with it.
But Anthony, you're sort of somewhere in between the two of us in terms of age and fan sort of looking. What did you enjoy the match, or do you sort of think it was a bit like what Mike's saying?
The match was great, but I do want to mention something. This hatred of Edge and Manson has somehow managed to work in even when Edge is not even mentioned. But anyway, that's besides the point. The match was. I thought the match was good. Like, I didn't know what they were going to do. I thought that. Well, I heard things of maybe that they might not put it on Rollins.
Yeah, I was starting to get a little bit of that too. 2 weeks away on the set, and they were downplaying him a bit, but
yeah. And I went, well, then the obvious answer is Styles, which then I thought about it. Triple H. Triple H obviously had a say in Rollins becoming the champion, and I went, every inaugural champion that has been as a result of Triple H was Seth Rollins, and I went, should have thought of that, but that's besides the point. But I didn't mind the match. It was it was a typical it was a match that was typical. I didn't mind it. As I said, like I like that they did that Rollins. But I think they're giving Rollins a bit more of a push now, which is interesting.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's done a lot of work, and he had how many losses in a row, and he sort of paid his dues a bit, and he was in big matches. He lost to Cody 3-0. There was a lot of all of that, but they were sort of building, well, as they see it, his character, his profile, his bit outrageous, ring gear. As soon as the crowd starts waning a fraction on him, he'll be gone. Like there'll be someone else.
Oh, well, that's the nature of the business.
Well, yeah, but at the moment he's hot with their fans.
Oh, no doubt.
So, what do you give it at? Just coincidentally,
I went with you. I went 8.
Yeah, okay. See, great minds think alike, Anthony.
Yes.
All right, and that took us into our second match, Anthony.